In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible.
Hi, welcome to the In the Last Days television program from Jerusalem, Israel. My name is Martin Blackham. My wife Natalie Blackham says hello to you. She's behind the scenes. And this is the program that looks at Israel and the end times and news from Israel. We have a very special guest in the studio today, David Rubin. Great to have you again in the studio. Thank you so much. We're on a bit of a cliffhanger last week with the story of what happened to you, and we'll come straight back into that in just 1 minute. We're talking with David this week. We've got David in the studio who's been with us before. Many of you have written to us and said you so much enjoyed the program when David was on. His new book is called Peace for Peace, and if I can just get that on the camera, it's the latest book that you've just written. It's hot off the press, and they can get that how, David?
Well, I think the best way is just to go to the website, which is davidrubinisrael.com. davidrubinisrael.com. Just go to the book section, and they can read about the books a little bit more and order it there.
And you're not just buying the book, but that you'll be helping the work of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which we'll be talking a bit more about in the program today. Well, we want to get straight back. For those who were watching last week, we left on a bit of a cliffhanger. You were telling us the story. And the reason I asked David the question was that, and it's directly from this book, Peace for Peace, is that our imagination is that when there's peace in Israel, or so-called peace agreements, it's a good thing, but actually they are very often very bad. And you had personal experience of this coming after the so-called Oslo agreements that were done in Norway, peace agreements. You had this personal experience of this. As just to give you a bit of the background, the terrorism increased. That was the problem. The terrorism increased after Oslo, and you were coming on the road to Jerusalem.
Well, the terrorism increased drastically as a result of those so-called peace accords, and that is the problem, that the peace accords were based on the wrong principles, and that's what my book Peace for Peace is all about. That we have to change the basic premises and that the peace process has been based on, because all that it has led to is increased terrorism, increased war. And we who live in the biblical heartland of Israel know that terrorism very personally. And as I started to tell the story last time, just 11 years ago, I was coming back from Jerusalem with my 3-year-old son buckled behind me in the baby seat in my car, and I'm driving home, driving back to Shiloh, which is where we live. And halfway home, there's a massive hail of bullets on the car. There were terrorists on the side of the road shooting at us with AK-47 assault rifles. I saw bullets whizzing past my eyes, literally centimeters from my eyes. And then a bullet went into my leg, crashed into my left leg, and blood started coming out all over the place. I tried to start the car to get away from the terrorists, and the car wasn't starting. It was dead. It was just coasting down a hill. And I quickly turned around to my 3-year-old son just to see how he was, and my son is sitting there, staring straight ahead, eyes wide open, mouth wide open. He looked like he was trying to scream or to cry, but no sounds were coming out. But I didn't see any blood on him, so I assumed that he was just in shock. I quickly tried to turn the ignition to get away, thinking I have to get to the next community up the road, which is called Ofra, where I remembered that there's usually an ambulance stationed there. So I turned the ignition. The car wasn't starting. It was dead. I shifted gears, park, drive, neutral, trying each time to turn the ignition to get it start. The car was not starting. It was still dead. The terrorists are still shooting. Finally, I closed my eyes, I held my breath, I turned the ignition one last time. The car suddenly started as if it had never had a problem starting before. I hit the gas. I drove as fast as I could to get to the next community up the road. The whole car was shaking. I was driving 170 kilometers an hour at least, and I was shaking probably from the loss of blood. Finally, a few minutes later, we get up to the front gate of the community of Ophrah. I start shouting to the guard at the gate. Now, mind you, the communities in Samaria all have metal gates in the front of the community. That's the only way we can keep out the Islamic terrorist car bombers. So I start shouting to the guard at the gate, please, get an ambulance. He didn't seem to hear me. I was inside the car. I couldn't get out because of my leg. There was a young woman on the side of the road. She starts jumping up and down, screaming, ambulance, ambulance, don't you hear? At that point, everyone who was within sound's reach came running up to the car. Some teenagers from the bus stop ran up to the car to see what was going on. The gas station attendant from across the street, from the petrol station, he ran up to the car to see what was happening. He ripped off my shirt. He wrapped up my leg. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm also a paramedic. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. And he tried to stop the blood flow from my leg. Then he handed me his cell phone. He said, here, quick, call your wife. My hand was shaking too much. I couldn't even dial. He dialed it for me somehow. And I told my wife, I've been shot in the leg. And hopefully our son, Rubin, Ruby, we call him, I said, Ruby is okay. So soon they'll be taking me to the hospital, but thank God Ruby is okay. And she said, okay, I'll try and get to the hospital somehow. And just then, a moment later, the ambulance zooms up near my car. Two paramedics jump out. They start running to the ambulance. One of them pulls open the back door of my car, and he starts unbuckling my son from the baby seat. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm unbuckling your son. I said, but he's just in shock. He just needs to be with his dad. He doesn't need to be pulled out. He said, no, sir, I have to take him out. He pulls him out of the car, cradles him in his arms. He starts running at break speed to the ambulance, shouting, he's also been shot. He's been shot in the head. A bullet had gone into his head where the skull meets with the neck, we later found out, causing a skull fracture and internal bleeding in the cerebellum. Well, they quickly wrapped his head with bandages, put an oxygen mask on his face, and whisked both of us on stretchers into that ambulance to take us to the hospital in Jerusalem. Well, we get to the hospital in Jerusalem. They put us both in emergency rooms, and they get to work on us. And after about 20 minutes and a lot of painkillers, the head surgeon comes up to me and he says, David, I just want you to know that we're going to have to operate on both of you within the half an hour. It'll be the first of probably several operations. But I want you to know that, and there's someone else here who wants to speak to you. So a man walked up to me who I had never seen before. He says, I'm the public relations director for this hospital. I just want you to know that you are the 1,000th victim of terrorism, 1,000th victim of terrorism, to be hospitalized in this hospital just in the past year and a half since the mass waves of terrorism started. Well, I wasn't quite sure what to do with that dubious honor. He said to me, I'm telling you this because the media is massed outside this emergency room. They want to interview the 1,000th victim of terrorism and photograph you and your son. And I thought for a split second, I thought of all the terrorism that we had been experiencing, and I thought of all the children who we already knew, the families who'd been torn apart from terrorism. I said, you bring them in, I have what to say to them. And I've been telling this story ever since. And I tell this story not because of our trauma, our personal trauma. I tell this story not because of any political message that I have to deliver, even though I'm not shy about my opinions. I tell this story because it's a story of miracles. I was shot in my left leg, even though the terrorist was shooting from the right side, which enabled me to drive my automatic car to get to that ambulance, because obviously we use our right leg only when we drive an automatic car. The bullet that went into my son's head and through his neck missed his brain stem by 1 millimeter. Well, those are the kinds of miracles that your average atheist will try and rationalize away. But then we have miracles that are revealed miracles, almost like the splitting of the Red Sea on that when the children of Israel, when the Israelites left Egypt, almost like the fire on the mountain, on Mount Sinai, when we received the Ten Commandments. There are miracles in our times as well. On my 5th day in the hospital, I'm laying in my hospital bed. I get a call from the car mechanic telling me that he doesn't know why they can't start the car. And he's asking me, laying in my hospital bed, why can't we start that car? Now, I have to tell you, I know that the car went dead when the bullets hit. I know that I drove 170 kilometers an hour to get to the ambulance. And now he's telling me that the car went dead at that point, and they had to have it towed from there. And now he's asking me, why can't we start that car? Now, he's telling me there are 49 bullet holes in the car, yes. But he wanted to know why they can't start the car, and a chill went down my back when he asked me that question, because I know that I got to safety by driving that car after it had been dead, and I had almost given up hope that the car was going to start again. And I know that after that day, I started counting miracles. And I know that God changed my life completely and put a mission in me. I did not know what that mission was yet, but I know that we was truly lifted up on God's wings to get us to that ambulance. And that's when I decided, after 3 weeks later, my son came back from the hospital. And I knew that some sort of mission had been planted in me. But when he came home from the hospital, he was walking, screaming in the middle of the night. And it wasn't just one night, it was more than one night. And my wife and I realized that there was deep psychological trauma in that boy, in that little 3-year-old. And I realized that I needed to do something to help him. It took a while till we found therapy for him, children's therapy, play therapy. And the more I explored it, the more I realized that we had thousands of children who have been traumatized by the terrorism in the biblical heartland of Israel, and several just in my son's class alone. And I decided to start the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund for the purpose of healing the trauma of terrorism in the biblical heartland, and at the same time rebuilding the biblical heartland of Israel through those children. And we've set up therapy programs. We've established programs using music and art and movement therapy. We built a petting zoo using animal-assisted therapy. We've built a horse farm for therapeutic horseback riding. All of these techniques are working wonderfully. We are healing the trauma of terrorism and rebuilding the biblical heartland of Israel through these children. And it's been just miraculous to see the miracles at work of what God can do. Now, I have to tell you, the challenge that my teachers have always taught me, that our challenge in this world is to turn darkness into light and to turn bitterness into sweetness. And we've truly been blessed by being able to do that. It's been a privilege to do that. And what the terrorists intended for evil, God has managed to turn into good. Using me, using those who stand with me and help me in this. And I have to tell you, it's not just us in Israel, but it's people around the world who stand with us, who support what we're doing, who send donations to help our projects. And it's just truly been a blessing of bringing Christians together with Jews on behalf of the children of the biblical heartland of Israel.
And if you're watching today and you'd like to get involved, they'd like to support the work of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, what's the best way to do that?
Well, all they have to do is go to our website. I spoke earlier about my website, davidrubinisrael.com, which is specifically for getting over a current events message to people and to so they can find out more about my books and to order my books. But we have a website that is specifically for the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, and that is ShilohIsraelChildren.org. ShilohIsraelChildren.org. And there are videos, there are photos, there are descriptions of the different individual testimonies that are just amazing, and we're truly managing to save these children and build better lives for the children of Israel.
And what we'll do as well, I know some of you watching may not be able to access the internet, and what we'll do is we'll put on the screen the actual physical address, so that if you've got a pen, then you can jot that down, the address for yourself.
Yes, and as they see on the screen, the address here in Israel is P.O. Box 9319, and Shiloh, Israel. P.O. Box 9319, Shiloh, Israel.
And one of the things that's come out of your experience has been the books. You've written 3 books now, if I'm not mistaken, and the latest one, Peace for Peace, which the proceeds will go to the
Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. All net proceeds from the books go to Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. So I want to encourage people to stand with us, to partner with us, and to go to the website. And the website, ShilohIsraelChildren.org, has an option for people that they can give a one-time donation using a credit card. They can give an automatic monthly donation using credit card, and we have people in England who do that, and in other places around the world. So I want to encourage people to do that, to really stand with us. There's no greater blessing than to bless children who've suffered from terrorism.
So get in touch with David at those details. I know that a lot of the viewers really want to help Israel. They want to be practically involved, not just praying and standing with Israel. I know many of you do political action, but this is a way that you can practically help in the biblical heartland, where it's really needed to support the children who've suffered from terrorism. Now, just one thing as we're coming near to the end of the program, David, in Peace for Peace, and it's something we haven't covered last week or the week before, was the situation with Israel's neighbors and the Arab Spring. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I did write about that in Peace for Peace, and it was kind of interesting. My previous book, The Islamic Tsunami, spoke about the threat of an Islamic worldwide domination, and the domination of Islamic fundamentalism and the spread of it around the world. And then about 2 months, literally 2 months after the book The Islamic Tsunami came out, was published, the Arab Spring broke out. And I was getting phone calls from people saying, how did you know? And I didn't predict that the Arab Spring was going to happen in all these countries in the Middle East, but I did predict that Islamic fundamentalism is going to spread around the Middle East and henceforth around the world, and aiming to take over Western civilization or Judeo-Christian civilization. And when I wrote Peace for Peace, I got into quite a bit of detail about it, and I explained what the so-called Arab Spring is all about. It's really an Islamic tsunami. It's a spread of Islamic fundamentalism throughout the Middle East, and it is the most dangerous movement that has hit the world since the Nazi Holocaust. And what can I say? It has increased the danger for Israel, because now we are surrounded by Islamic fundamentalists. We have the Muslim Brotherhood, on our southern border now. We have in Syria, which is our northeastern border, uh, we we have also the threat. We've always had the threat from Bashar Assad and his government, but now there's a civil war going on between Assad, on one hand, the Shiite Muslims, with the Sunni Muslims. The Sunni Muslims are being led by the Muslim Brotherhood and Al Qaeda. So we're talking about Islamic terrorist organizations, Islamic fundamentalism that's spreading throughout the Middle East, and from there outward to the world.
And the media just is just giving such a wrong version of events. I remember the media was very much in favour of the revolution in Libya, which I thought was very strange. And the intervention.
And NATO.
NATO intervened.
NATO
There was British and I think there was American aeroplanes involved in what happened in Libya. And what's the fruit of that? The murder of the American ambassador.
There is no fruit, no positive fruit at least, and the civil war in Syria, the Islamic revolution and spread of Islamic fundamentalism in Egypt, in Libya, all of these countries, they're dropping like flies, and from there it goes outward. You know, if you look at Europe and you look at the spread of Islamic fundamentalism in Europe, the beheading of the British officer is only the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be far more as the Muslim population grows in Europe. This is something that is a worldwide threat, and even Tony Blair has admitted recently that we need to be a bit concerned about an Islamic fundamentalist threat, that it's more than just isolated incidents. So I think it's time that people wake up and understand what's going on, and get educated about it. Read The Islamic Tsunami. Read Peace for Peace. Go to davidrubinisrael.com and order these books, and then teach others about what is really going on, because it's a serious threat, and it's going to bring down. Sorry for interrupting you, Martin. It's going to bring down both of our houses, both Israel and Judeo-Christian civilization in the West.
And the danger is, of course, that the Judeo-Christian civilization, particularly the United States, has been such a supporter of Israel that to lose this support at this time would be quite serious. And
well, it's serious for Israel, but it's also serious for the United States. It's also serious for Europe, because you know, we believing Jews and Christians believe that what the Bible says is true, and if it says those who bless Israel will be blessed, well, we believe it. So those who support Israel, those who stand with Israel in practical ways, with practical support, practical financial support, practical prayer, political action, all of these things that help Israel also help the people who are out there who are helping us. The blessings do come back. They come back tenfold, and we've seen that through history. The countries that have stood with Israel have been blessed, have been helped, and those who've stood against Israel have seen the turmoil in their countries, and we see it now in the Islamic world.
And if you just tuned in, we've just as we're coming to the end of the program, we've got David Rubin in the studio talking about Peace for Peace, the latest book, hot off the press. It covers basically all the peace processes, or so-called peace processes, which have often resulted in nothing, or the worst, David, is the loss of land and the communities. For example, in the Gaza Strip, the Jewish communities, we've seen the destruction of these wonderful communities. And even today, a lot of them still haven't found
they haven't found homes. They haven't found new locations to live in. And the worst thing about it is that in the place of those Jewish communities, those Israeli communities that have been evacuated, the Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorist organizations have set up missile launching pads with which to attack Israel. And so that's a lesson to be learned for all of us, that handing over land to Islamic terrorists, having any gestures to Islamic terrorists, only brings more terrorism and more violence to our shores.
Because the whole premise of the peace is that it's reciprocal, but instead for peace you get war instead.
Right. So that's why my book is called Peace for Peace.
And if they want to get hold of that, they can get hold of that at David Rubin.
DavidRubinIsrael.com. That's Rubin spelled R-U-B-I-N, of course. DavidRubinIsrael.com.
And don't forget, the book is also supporting the work of the
Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. Shiloh Israel Children's Fund gets all the net proceeds, and it's put towards our children's projects, which we have a therapeutic educational complex for children using music and art and animals, horses, and we're truly healing the trauma of terrorism for these children. And any one of your viewers is invited to get in touch with me and come see for themselves. Come visit and take the tour and see what we're doing.
And you can do that. So you can actually visit when you're in Israel. You can go to Shiloh and visit the center.
Yes, but please send me an email first. Yes, they can come and they can visit and they can see for themselves. And for those who aren't able to make the trip, they can just go to the website, shilohisraelchildren.org, and see what we're doing.
Well, thank you so much for coming over today. It's been great to have you again with us. And thank you for talking about your book, Peace for Peace. It's been great to be with you today. And don't forget, you can email us at info@inthelastdays.com. Visit the website, www.inthelastdays.com. And remember, we're living in the last days.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.